Welcome back to Introduction to Programming using C++. How's everybody doing today, fellow programmers? Today I'm going to speak about the control loop called a do statement. Now we're talking about iterations. If you haven't already, please look at my videos on relational and logical operators because that will provide you with a little background on some of the logical and relational expressions that I'm going to go over in this video. Okay, so let's get started. So the first loop that I'm going to go over is actually the do while loop, and I'll give you some important points on how it behaves. Okay, so the do while loop is going to execute at least one time, meaning that as we go through the code here and the program executes, it will actually go into the body of the do while loop once, and then it'll check for a condition. Depending if the condition is true, it will continue and go back up to the body of the do while loop, or if it's false, it'll just break out. So in this particular example, we have a variable called count. Now count is actually something called a loop control variable. So I'm going to use this variable to control the loop and how many times we iterate over the loop. And right now I'm setting it to 1. Okay, initializing it to 1. And once I go into here, the first thing that's going to happen is we're actually going to execute this body here inside the do while loop. Okay, so on the first iteration, it actually first executes the body. And this is something known as a post loop test, which means that it's going to actually do the body first and then do the checking after. Most other loops are pretest loops, which means that it's actually going to check the condition first and then do the execution of the body. But this is the reverse. It actually does the execution of the body first, and then it will do the checking of the condition. Now when you have a do while loop, you need an open bracket and close bracket. This indicates that this compound statement belongs to the body of the do while loop. So anything that goes in here, you're fair game. So I can put any type of if statements here, I can put any type of assignment statements here. It really doesn't matter what I put here as long as it's valid syntax, any switch cases, anything that I want. There's no restrictions. I could even put another do while loop within a do while loop. Okay, now the other type of syntax that we have to look at is the way that you write the condition. So this is a do while, so you have a do, then the body, and then you're going to have the keyword called while, and within while you will have something called an expression. Okay, this expression will control the entries and exits to the loop, so that if this expression is true, it will continue to go back up and execute the body once more. If the expression is false, then it would just break out of the loop and continue to the next lines in the code. Okay, so for this particular example, what I'm doing is I am printing out the value of count, and then I do a postfix increment for count, and then I do a comparison. So we ask the question, is count less than or equal to 10? Is count less than or equal to 10? So we take the value of count, which incremented by 1. So initially it was 1. We incremented by 1, so that's 2. 2 is less than or equal to 10, so that means we're going to go back to the top of the body and execute this. So as you go through the iterations, you're going to have a printout of 1 through 10 here. So let me show you the result. And there you go. So anything in the cout, I'm going to put a width of 5. Okay, a width of 5. And then I'm going to print out the actual variable. So this block of lines of code are actually going to execute 10 times. They're actually going to execute 10 times. And as you see, for every iteration, you're always going to check if this expression is going to give you a true or false. Okay, let me give you another example. So let's take a look at this example. Okay, here I'm actually asking for a number within my body of the loop, and I can do that. So whatever number that they type in will be stored in ID num, and then we do a comparison. If ID num is less than 100 or ID num is greater than 1,000, and this expression turns out to be true, then we will go back to the body of the do loop and execute this once again. So for what test cases will this be true? Well, let's try a few, right? So if we do 2, we ask the question, is 2 less than 100? Yes, it is. Because this is a NOR, then we know that as long as one of them is true, then the whole expression will be true. Next test case, let's do 200. Okay, so 200, is 200 less than 100? 200 less than 100 is my question. So that's false, right? Because 200 is not less than 100. 200 is greater than 100. So this will be false. So now we need to evaluate the next expression. So we would say, is 200 greater than 1,000? Is 200 greater than 1,000? That's false, right? 200 is not greater than 1,000. So that means that for 200, this expression will be false, which means that we will actually break out. So let's try that again. Let's try this. Okay, so we'll try our test case. So if we enter 2, that means that we should stay in the loop. So this will be true, and we will go back to the body of the loop, and it will print this again. Let's press enter, and there you go. So now we're back to here, and let's look at the case where we actually break out. So let's do 200, and there you go. We broke out because when we typed in 200, ID num was set to 200, and it didn't satisfy any of these conditions, and as the whole expression turned out to be false. Okay, it turned out to be false. So anytime we enter a number less than 100, okay, or a number greater than 100, or a number that's less than 1,000, you kind of have to look at it in the reverse, then we will get a false for this, and it will break out a loop. It all depends on what you're looking at in terms of what your breakout condition will be. Many breakout conditions will be different depending on the problem that you're defined or you're assigned. Okay, so let's run through a couple of more test cases here. So let's try 99. 99 will work, right? If we try 55, that'll work. Okay, now if we try 100, remember relational, when you have a less than, 100 is not less than 100, right? So this actually will be false, and 100 is not greater than 1,000. It's checking if it is, and it's true, but this is not. So if we do that, then we broke out of the loop because you entered 100. So you see the behavior of the loop. You first do the body for the first iteration, and then we do the condition check. If it's true, we go back, we do the body, then again check the condition. If it's true again, we go do the body, and so on. So we can do this forever as long as we satisfy this particular condition. Okay, if we don't satisfy this condition, then we can just break out of the loop. Okay, so this is our first introduction to looping. So I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, you can always contact me at www.parttimemagic.com or send me an email at parttimemagic@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Happy programming. Next videos are going to go into for and while loops. Okay, for and while loops.